The grass is not greener on the other side, but it sure looks better than what's over here or where you may be at currently. But in all seriousness, the true quote is the grass isn't greener on the other side, it's greener where you water it. Hi, I'm Courtney, and this is Unhappy Teacher Podcast, a safe space for educators to vent, get it off your chest, and know that you are not alone. Here we discuss all things education, from the challenges to the triumphs, and how we can continue to grow in our personal and professional wellness. In today's episode, I want to talk about transferring schools. Yes, this is a big topic because a lot of teachers, leave schools they started at very often. Some people may be career hoppers and career jumpers going from one school to another. So when we talk about transferring schools, that's leaving one school to go to another for whatever reason that may be. If you're a teacher who's been very fortunate to spend a lot of your years or your total career at one school, then I commend you. I often wonder how can teachers, you hear about teachers spending about 25 years, 30 years in education, but then some even at that one school, and I commend you. Now there's others who find themselves needing to leave their current schools. And again, that can be for various reasons. It can be whether you're looking for a place that's closer to home. I know a lot of teachers, they may have to commute. Others may be just looking for that perfect place, that perfect 10 school, which I'm sorry to tell you, that does not exist. So before you find yourself in this rotating path and just continuing to hop from school to school, ask yourself, is it helpful and how is this really benefiting me? This is really important because in your quest to find happiness or a better school, that right situation, we can get caught up in, again, looking for that perfect school and the perfect situation with the perfect students and the perfect admin and the perfect parents. I guarantee you, even the schools you see where the teachers are smiling and yeah, no. Mm-mm. Trust me, there's challenges. There's challenges in every school and no matter where you go. But pause and ask yourself, is this really benefiting me? What is it that I'm looking for? Are you just aimlessly jumping around and not really taking a moment to reflect on what you've been through, the school that you were at, the schools that you have, and where you're going? So in talking about reflecting can hurt. Reflecting can hurt for some because you have to be truly honest with yourself and be vulnerable to accept some of your faults as well. So I'll just talk about my personal experience and how, I wanted to leave my school. So in my career, I've been teaching for 11 years, 1 year outside the country, 9 years, 9 years in an elementary school setting. I did 9 years in one elementary school. And then my most recent year, my 11th year of teaching, I did middle school, sixth grade middle school. And there were numerous times I thought about leaving and what that would look like. I'll speak about the first time I remember wanting to leave my school, transferring. This transfer period happens early at the beginning of the year. For some, January, February, March. I know now it's getting earlier and earlier, it seems like. But the first time I wanted to leave, I remember it was around my 5th year of teaching, I would say. I think it was about my 5th year of teaching. I remember I had just had it. I had it. I had already been through my anxiety attack where I was crying. I just felt so confused. I felt just unwell all around. I was stressed out. And really, honestly, when I think about it, it was the confusion I felt of not really understanding or believing in the mission of my school and the vision of my school. I felt like we were just saying and doing a lot of things on paper, but it was just year after year, just like toss up, like, oh, this sounds good, let's do this. And that could contribute to the revolving door of administration I've had. So I'll speak about it. My first year when I first started teaching in America, because again, my first year teaching was in South Korea. I had a principal and there were two APs. The following year, one of the APs, he left and came a new AP. And then that next year, my third year, I think I had a new now principal. But before the principal, I think we had an intern principal. Before the new principal came, we had an intern principal. And then they found a new principal. And then we had that principal, instead we had two APs. And then I think the following year after that, another AP left, and then another AP came. And then we had that principal for maybe about 2 or 3 years, and I don't know, it was even 3 years. And then there was the intern principal had to come back again so that we can find a new principal. But you get the story. It was just forever changing, and I didn't like that. I didn't like that at all, because for me, it felt like, how can I begin to trust you or buy into what your vision is if I don't even have the time to get to know you, because the previous administrators just kept leaving as well? And of course, then you have this high turnover rate. And why do you have this high turnover rate? Maybe because in the building there's more confusion. Yes, it's hard work teaching. Yes, our students are below grade level. But there were just so many factors in why I wanted to leave. I knew I was unhappy and something had to change. And also, I would speak about the toxicity. It was just not a positive environment, I felt like, anymore. So basically, when it's time to transfer, you'll get your contract in the email, and they'll tell you, okay, actually, before you get the contract, I believe, you have this transfer period where you can sign a paper saying, I want to transfer to go to another school. You get the signatures of your principals and whoever else to be. And then you have to begin interviewing. You have to begin going to interview and find the school that you want to go to. So I remember when I started, I don't think I really, at this time, I think it was later March, I think, is when I started looking for a new school, but I didn't really know what I was doing, or I didn't really know what I was doing. I just know I wanted to leave, and I'm thinking, okay, I'll just find something. So I think I started applying pretty late, or emailing principals pretty late. And so I know it was in May. I remember it getting down to the last minute. And in May, right before school was out, I remember doing an interview at a local elementary school. And I heard some great things about this elementary school. They were STEAM certified, and I went there. And I think I did well in my interview. And then it was just now the wait game to see if they're going to hire me. And so I waited, I think it was about 2 weeks. And the last day of school, I will never forget, the last day of school, when we're saying goodbye to the students and putting the students on the bus, I get a phone call. And I remember having to step away real quick. This was like literally putting the kids on the bus. And they called me and offered me the position at this school. And it was the ESOL position at the time. And I quickly was like, yes, I'll take it. They was like, okay, great. I think I needed to get over there and get like a paper or a signature or something so I can send it to the HR office. I was just elated. I knew that I would be starting the new school year at another school, and I was so happy. So moving forward, from there, it's a system. I don't even know if I told my principal. I probably did tell my principal. I'm pretty sure I did. Actually, I did, because I remember going into her office before leaving and speaking to her one-on-one, telling her, my experience that I've had at the school, and just that with her being, a new principal there, that I really wanted her to stay and be committed to the school because that school needed someone who was going to be there. And I said peace and left. Now, that same year, I believe it was 2018, I was going to Ghana. I was going to Ghana abroad on as a participant of the Fulbright Hayes Project. And I was so happy. Everything just felt like it was a new start, a new beginning. I was my first time in Africa at the University of Ghana with other educators, and it was just wonderful. And taking all that energy, all that knowledge that I've learned from the motherland, from other African professors who are just instilling so much in me, I was coming back to the new school year ready. I don't know what for, but I knew I was coming back to a better situation, right? And so something though was a little off. I wasn't getting an email. I didn't get any emails informing me of what to do, when's the orientation for the new school. I wasn't getting any emails from this new school. And so I'm like, okay, when I get back to the States, let me check in with HR because this is not making any sense. And so I remember coming back from Ghana and sending a letter to HR just asking them like, hey, I haven't heard any correspondence from my new school. It said I was going to receive a packet or something. What's going on? What's happening? And they emailed me back and said, something about, unfortunately, the principal at the time who hired me no longer had, I think, the hiring capabilities because they were leaving. They were taking a sabbatical or whatever. I don't know. They were actually leaving and wouldn't be the principal there no more. They were going off, I believe, from what I remember. I think they were like going to another country to do something else. I don't know. But apparently they didn't have the power anymore to hire me, to sign up. And I thought that was weird because I'm like, what? So why would they even think that they had that? Like, why would the principal, the secretary, why would they all think that, okay, they can do this? So now I have to do some research. And I don't know if matter of fact, no, so the position that I was going to take, the ESOL position, was that of a teacher who was leaving that school to go to the middle school. And I believe she emailed me first, maybe stating what was going on or something. I remember she contacting me first and letting me know that she did not get her transfer approved for the same reason. So she was still sitting in the position that I wanted at that school, and she couldn't leave to go to the middle school. All because now this principal apparently didn't have the right to sign off. So we both were just stuck. And so now I'm having to crawl back to my elementary school. But before I even went back to my principal, I remember crying. I actually cried. I cried because I just felt so disappointed and hurt. I was really looking forward to a new start, a new opportunity. I thought I was leaving hell because I probably thought my situation was hell at the time, which of course now looking back, it was bad, but it wasn't all that bad compared to what could be. But I just remember being so hurt, thinking like, how could this really be happening? Or why could this be happening? Like, I just didn't understand. So as I had to, tuck my feelings back in, put myself together, do some reflecting, I really, truly had to pray to God and ask God to please get me through another year. Help me to understand your plan and why. Why am I still at that school? What more do you need me to do? I've been your humble servant. Like, please deliver me from this. Like, I was just so torn up inside, but I pushed through. I mean, I still had a job, so I knew that. But the fact that I had to go to my school and I had to tell them like, hey, my transfer didn't go through. And my principal, I remember her saying, oh wow, that probably explains why I can't um, open up your position, so that someone else can apply because I was still on her roster of staff. And so she was like, well, you still have your position here. It is open to you. And so I don't think our conversation went that much further after that. I think I talked about my trip to Ghana and showed some pictures and stuff like that. And yeah, moved forward into that new school year. Disappointed, but after reflecting, I knew why. I knew why I had to stay. Of course, it didn't make sense until after that school year, but that same year, I opened up my dance studio. Later that December, I actually had a physical location for my dance studio. Previously, we were renting from this other dance company and doing rehearsals wherever we could find. But now we actually signed a lease on our own dance studio. And so I look back and I was like, God was telling me there was a change coming. I felt that change, but it was not the change I thought it was going to be. It was not there at my school, but what was flourishing into my passions with dance. So I was grateful for that opportunity because I knew if I had to start over at a new school, I would have not had the mental capacity to be able to learn a new school, learn a new staff, learn their ways, and operate a new dance studio and do the things that I need to do there and be there. It probably would have been too much. So in hindsight, I'm grateful. I'm grateful God kept me where where He knew I needed to be. Also, I was very influential in mentoring students at that elementary school. I had a mentee that I was very close with, and at that time, she was going through a lot of things in her life. And that year, I believe it was that same year, she graduated that same year, but with the help of me. I do remember, like I said, she was just going through a lot personally in her life, and I remember there being a conversation where they were, considering not passing her and leaving her back. And I remember having to sit in the meeting and truly be an advocate for her because she was very, very smart girl, but just life circumstances, it was not her fault. A lot of the things that was happening and absenteeism, but yeah, I knew that year was special because that year I had to get her up out of that school, and other students as well. I fostered a lot of relationships with my students that year, and I can smile about it now. Probably at the time, I don't know if I was smiling this hard. I probably was going through it, but a lot of those young ladies became dancers in my dance studio, and I was blessed to be able to be that mentor for them, not only in the classroom, but outside the classroom. So again, that was what I learned in reflecting on that moment when I first wanted to transfer schools. Now, fast forward, I had to spend probably about another 4 years now we're talking about at that school, and it was rough. Had to get through 2020, going back into the classroom. And the second time I wanted to leave was in 2023. This was after having my son, after going through that year of going back to work, postpartum, post COVID, post just everything, nothing was settling for me. Nothing was settling for me, and I knew without a doubt I had to leave. And I don't even know if I cared where I went. I'm pretty sure I did, but it was unwavering. It was nothing nobody could say or do that was going to keep me there. I knew I had to leave without a doubt, and I made a plan early. And that's the difference between the first time me wanting to leave and the second time. The first time, I didn't really know what I was doing. I waited late. But this time, oh, I knew, like I said, without a doubt, I knew I wanted to leave. And some of the reasons why I wanted to leave, negativity. The negativity in that building was so thick. It was so thick I couldn't breathe, I felt like. Literally, I remember having to pray over my classroom every morning, having to pray over my classroom. I remember I was having sage oil. I remember having holy oil on my desk by my computer. Like, I was trying to put myself in the most positive atmosphere I possibly could create. I literally had to create boundaries from even my coworkers that may have wanted to come in my classroom and, just kind of pour all their negativity and their frustration out. And, I used to allow it, but then there was sometimes I had to be honest where it's like, I don't have the capacity. I do not have the capacity right now. Like, we need to speak positivity, or we need to just talk about solutions. Let's look forward to what's going to happen. I mean, I was at that place. And honestly, I think that's when I first came up with the unhappy teacher concept because boy was I unhappy. Also, again, new administration, again, by this time, a totally different administration than what I had back in 2018 when I first wanted to leave. Everyone, from the principals down to the two APs, everyone's new again. And there was honestly no rapport and no trust. And I just couldn't relate to them. Now, not saying they, were bad people or had ill intentions. I'll take accountability for myself. I was just removed. I was removed from anything that they wanted to say or had to do. I probably had my blockers up. And so I personally could not even extend that olive branch or step up at that time. I didn't even want to step up. I remember feeling like, hey, I've done so much for this school. I'm tired. I'm tired. I know I'm valuable. I know I'm highly valuable, but I don't think you guys really know my worth. And so I was ready to leave. I was looking for a new school placement. And so now what that process looked totally different in January 2023, when the transfer process opened. I did not hesitate to get my papers signed. It was very clear, and it was also a faster process too. Again, pre-COVID, there was a lot of paperwork and signatures. I think this time it was all electronic. So it was a faster process. And again, there was just no wavering. I knew I was not coming back. So I put that transfer in immediately when it opened. And immediately I began making it clear and opening my mouth to other colleagues that, hey, I am looking for new placement. And particularly, I wanted to go to middle school. I wanted to go to middle school to see what it would be like teaching in middle school. Now, right, this is me. Oh, what would it be like teaching in middle school? I felt so overwhelmed with elementary at the time because I had a baby, a toddler, and I just felt depleted. I was working with fourth grade, and I felt like they just needed so much of my attention. So, in my mind, two things. I'm like, well, if I go to middle school, maybe they will be a little bit more independent. And secondly, I wanted to see what happened to my students leaving fourth and fifth grade, and me knowing good and well that they're not really prepared for middle school, what happens when they get there. That was my purpose, true purpose for me going to middle school. I needed to see what happened to my babies from fourth grade and fifth grade when they got into middle school. And we'll talk about that later because boy, oh boy, oh boy, I got an iPhone now. But again, I put the word out. I let colleagues know I wanted to go to middle school. And one of my colleagues said, hey, I know a middle school that's hiring, gave me the information. And I immediately sent the email to the principal, I believe, and I got an interview. I believe I interviewed in January, late January, maybe early February. And I got the job. So I remember in February having an offer. That was early. That was much earlier than May, right? So in February, I knew I had a new offer. I was out of there. And so my walk coming into work from February to May was totally different. I mean, I didn't care no more. In the sense of I knew that after these few months, I wanted to say free. I was free to explore my new path. And so that is where I'm at now. I'm currently in middle school teaching sixth grade. And when I first began the school year, oh, I was very, very hopeful. Very, very hopeful, looking forward to a new year, um, and open. I was very open to learning new things. I was not coming into the new school or into the new school building with kind of closed-minded, thinking that I know everything already. I was actually looking forward to learn. So I went in there with no real expectations. I knew already that the school was not all rainbows and butterflies because they were in the news for something, but I still knew what I was walking into, kind of. Again, I knew it was not going to be perfect. So I went in. I didn't have any really expectations, but to learn. I just wanted to learn and to get insight, and I wanted to see leadership in a different light. In my previous school, I told you I had so many rotating admin, and I didn't like what I saw. I felt like I never had role models in that sense that was guiding my career, guiding my professional path and my goals. And I always felt like I was just kind of doing this thing on my own, just figuring it out. And so I really wanted to see what leadership looked like, what good leadership could look like, and what it looked like elsewhere. So I really went into this position just wanting to learn all things. And as I reflect, I definitely learned a lot. This was definitely, I feel like, one of my most challenging years. It's weird how each year it feels like it's getting harder and harder. But after completing a full year, I can honestly say, even as I'm sitting here reflecting now, that I got what I was looking for because I was clear in my intention on what I wanted when I transferred. I was just not looking for a happy school, that perfect 10 school. I was clear that I wanted to see what leadership looked like. I wanted to learn, and I wanted to see how students transition from elementary to middle school. So again, it's funny as I'm sitting here, speaking, that I'm still even reflecting on the year, and I got exactly what I was looking for. So I can say my transfer was successful. And that's not to say that where I'm at now, that this is I want to say like the perfect position, the sweet spot. By all means, it is not. Definitely not. I definitely had my times this year where I felt like, oh man, is this right for me? I need to quit. I need to get out. This is too much. Help me, save me. But that's when I had to go into my toolbox, and I really had to pull out a lot of my personal resources and just reflecting, journaling, meditating, having that support system on the job, having those coworkers that you can trust, that community of like-minded individuals that are not just going to complain about the situation, but also speak life into you. And remember, you too have to speak life into yourself. So, with all that said, if you are in this situation and you're thinking about, hey, I think it's time for me to leave my school, I need to transfer, think about it from a still standpoint. Don't just jump and make decisions based off your emotions. Stop and reflect. Reflect on your personal and your career goals. Reflect on your school year. And think about the things that you did not like about your school. Go ahead, make a list. Make a list, write it all out. Everything you did not like about your school. And then ask yourself, what are the three most important things? The three most important things that you cannot compromise on. the 3 things that you really want when you're looking for a new school. And then ask yourself also, what are you not willing to compromise with? What are the things that you're not willing to compromise with at all? And then also, what can you compromise with? What are you willing to tolerate? It's important that you really write these down and reflect on it, as well as reflect on what you can bring to a school. Reflect on what you brought to your last school or your current school that you're in. How did you contribute? Did you really give it a chance? Did you contribute and bring your best self forth? And how is that going to be different at a new school? So you want to take time, journal, reflect on all of these things. If you need support or help with that, Unhappy Teacher is here to help you. If you definitely just go ahead online to unhappyteacher.com, in our resources tab, you will find a free teacher self-reflection worksheet that can help you with this. We also have journals online for you to go ahead, jot down your feelings, your thoughts, and emotions to help you create a clear plan of action for your future. So before we get out of here, I want to leave you with this quote by Nathaniel Branden. It says, "The first step towards change is awareness. The second step is acceptance." Think about that and reflect on it as you ask yourself, is the time right for me to leave my current school and move on to another? That's all I have for you today. If you want to stay updated with more resources and tips to help you find your happiness as you are seeking new schools or change in your career and just overall personal growth and professional wellness, please go ahead and subscribe. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date.